Hey, welcome everybody to the Bible and Big Bang. Dr. Hugh Ross and Dr. Philip. I gotta get this right. Gojkovic. Gojkovic. Oh my goodness. Yeah, you know what? I'll get it right. Gojkovic.
I got it.
So Felipe Gojkovic. You got it. You got it, buddy. And we're going to be talking a little bit about some of the more technical sides of black holes from Felipe's expertise. But this is going to be a real short hangout, guys. It's only about 20 minutes. I know we usually go for hours and days and weeks, but we have a very important event coming up at 12 o'clock my time Pacific with Kyle and SJ on marijuana. And so marijuana takes precedence over black holes. And we can always get Felipe back, I think, another time to talk about it. But Felipe, talk to us about black holes, because I know we didn't really want to get too technical in the discussion with Dr. Ross, but I really want to know more about what you do as far as your research on supermassive black holes and kind of distill it down to the layperson who doesn't really understand what a black hole may be.
Yeah, and if there's something that is not clear, please stop me. If I use a very complicated concept or something like that. So yeah, basically supermassive black holes, we observe them in most, at least the massive galaxies. Basically, we think that in most galaxies in the universe, there are at least one supermassive black hole in the center. And this is interesting is because even though these objects are tiny, are very small in size with respect to the host galaxy, and also in mass, but in size in particular, it's very small dot in the center of this galaxy. They have a very, very important role in galaxy evolution because there are stages of these objects that they eat a lot of material, a lot of gas from the galaxy, from around the environment, and emit huge amounts of energy. And this energy can shape the galaxies in a way that we can measure, actually. They have a very, very important role in galaxy evolution. And actually, the best evidence that we have for the existence of these supermassive black holes is in the center of our Milky Way. We observe orbits of stars that are apparently around nothing, but of course, because we see the orbit, we can guess that there's something in there, and we can calculate actually the mass, and we have calculated something around 4 million solar masses. So of course that doesn't exclude very, very exotic objects, but the best model that we have right now is the presence of a supermassive black hole, because you have such a concentration of mass in a very small region.
Now that's something that actually physics can demonstrate. Like when we look at the stars that are around the supermassive black hole in our own Milky Way, we can look at the orbits and we can say, okay, this orbit is having a high eccentricity here. It's going fast here, slow here. You can then use the physics and the math to say there has to be some object there that has mass that we can calculate that is having the effect we are seeing on the stars. Is that correct?
Exactly. And the concentration is that high that it can only be either a supermassive black hole or something much more exotic. And the best models that we have right now are consistent with a supermassive black hole.
Now, and theoretically, could it be something like concentrated dark matter? Theoretically.
Yeah, could be something like, or a boson star or something. Very
weird hypothetical stuff. So, like, for example, with dark matter, do we not do the same things when it comes to a galaxy? We see these stars moving in speeds that they shouldn't be moving at toward the edge of the galaxy, and we see that there's a irregular distribution of mass in a galaxy. And have you ever done any studies on that and looked and said, okay, this spike in gravity here in the galaxy can only be attributed to something that's causing a change or influencing the mass, and the only thing we know that does that is gravity, or excuse me, mass. So is that when they say, okay, we'll make a plot across the galaxy, and this is what the distribution will look like of the dark matter?
Yeah, I personally haven't touched that subject, But for example, I work in a group that concentrate mostly on simulating the universe. Actually, most of these very beautiful animations of the universe, like evolving with all the filaments and stuff, are produced actually by my boss. Volker Springel is a very famous astrophysicist. And yeah, basically the dark matter is a key ingredient in these simulations because that's something that we observe is mass that we know is there because we measure the gravitational effects, but we still don't know what it is. It can be there has been a lot of different hypotheses of what it is, from very weird non-interacting particles to actually a lot of black holes, for example.
Do you think it's non-baryonic? Do you think it's baryonic? Which on your,
it's probably non-baryonic. Yeah, it's probably non-baryonic because we don't see anything. It doesn't. Baryons tend to produce electromagnetic radiation, and we don't see anything.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
I was pretty fascinated today by actually both sides. You both had a lot of information, and it was really generous of you to share all of your information. And I'm just wondering what everyone had as a takeaway on this. For me, because I'm a Christian, I was focusing a lot on what he said about the Bible and God being both transcendent and immanent, and I hadn't thought of the whole immanent thing. So I'm going to go investigate that. But I was wondering what everyone else had as a takeaway today.
I'll leave that up to the panel because I thought it was a great discussion. I love these types of discussions where it doesn't get bogged down in technicalities. I prefer those on like my channel or on the Great Debate Community channel. Dave, Bullinator will run those. Or I don't think the Non-Sequitur Show needs to really get bogged down in the terminology. I think it just kind of slows everything down. But I think this was
I can't understand a lot of the concepts, so we should probably not talk about those.
If Kyle doesn't understand it, we don't do it. That's gonna be our new model. But here's where you have two very educated people that have knowledge about astrophysics that probably agree on most of the sciences. All right, I don't see much disagreement on the science, although I'd love if they find something they disagree with on the science. But I'm fascinated more by how Dr. Ross comes to the conclusion that it somehow necessitates a God, and Felipe comes to the conclusion it doesn't require a God, or at least he doesn't see evidence why it would require a God. And thank you for the super chat. Keep up the good work, Steve McCraig, Non-Sequitur Show, and Kyle.
Awesome. Back on the I had some technical issues and had to drop out. But this is going to give me some brownie points with the physicists out there. But it was Vera Rubin that first plotted the speeds of the stars in around the galaxy center. And my understanding is they're all going the same speed, which is evidence of a dark matter scaffolding around the galaxies. Is that not correct, Dr. Philippe?
Yeah, it doesn't require that the speed is the same, but yeah, because usually the what we call the rotation curve of the galaxy, so it's velocity as a function of radius. So as you go to the outer part of the galaxy, you have this trend that is going up, 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 up. And then when the edge of the disk of the galaxy starts, you should see something decaying, and usually what we observe is something like flat. So the speed remains more or less the same. But that's not a requirement. You can have something going down, but not as steep as you would expect with let's say Kepler law. But that if the decay is not as steep, that means that there's something other than the matter that we are observing in the form of stars, for example.
So why
Steve,
do you
can I
think
ask a
people all
question
of a
real quick
sudden...
before I have to drop out?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm gonna have to drop out here in just a second. Let me ask him one question real fast because I'm fascinated by this. Dr. Felipe, how many languages do you speak?
Let's say two: Spanish and English, and I'm starting to learn some German, but very, very, very basic.
So did you have to learn this also too in Spanish? What I'm asking is, you're almost having to double up on everything because it can't be the same. You know what I mean? You're having to obviously Spanish would be your native language, so you can explain it in both. Correct?
Spanish is just like English. You just add O or A at the end, and you translate. That's it.
I'm not sure that's how that works, Steve.
Or hell in front, right?
I'm not sure that's how that works.
Add an accent, you're good to go.
You just say law instead of
I
thee
think-
and speak English.
Yep.
I think that's even more, that lends more credence to how brilliant you probably are, because you have to, you're able to do it in both languages. I can, like I said, I barely get English right most of the time, so being able to speak that in.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm Chilean. I'm Chilean. It's not like my Spanish is wonderful. So
I doubt that.
Say something in Spanish, because everybody's like, oh, just it's the language of the love.
He's too humble.
Latino,
I think I know what you're talking about, Felipe, because I was in Mozambique. It was being told to me, like, Mozambique, they speak Portuguese, and a friend of mine was telling me that in a restaurant there, a Brazilian was brought over in order to manage a kitchen there, and it took them forever to figure out how to actually communicate with each other, even though they both spoke Portuguese. And like everybody in there spoke Portuguese, but the Brazilian Portuguese and the Mozambican Portuguese completely different. So Chilean Spanish is probably completely, like, sometimes feels completely different from other Spanish.
Yeah, and actually the problem with Chilean in particular is that we have a lot of very strange way of finishing words, and we speak very fast.
So the sayings a little bit different, and
like,
some of the words like
yeah, exactly. Americans are the same way we're trying to understand Southern people. We have no idea what the hell they're saying.
Listen here, Steve. I don't know what you're talking about, boy.
I
don't know, Steve. I'm going to come at you with a stick, and you're going to hit you upside the head, and like boom.
Wow, Steve, didn't you say you could put a cat in a shoe or something like that in Spanish? You could say it.
No, tengo un gato en mis zapatos.
Dr. Felipe, thank you once again for joining us. I've got to drop out to get ready for the debate, but I want to say thank you for coming on, and thanks to the rest of you for watching. And we'll see you. I'm getting ready to light one up in honor of the debate, and we'll be good to go.
And that starts in about 12 minutes. So like I said, we're going to have this for like 10 more minutes. I just wanted to introduce my channel to Felipe here, and maybe have, we'll talk to him later on, bring him back, and we'll have more of a in-depth discussion after I read some of his works, because honestly, I'm not familiar with your papers yet. And not that I would understand them, but I do find it to be a fascinating subject. So maybe we can kind of bring you back on another day. This is a very, very short after show. We usually go for an hour, 2 hours, and we'll talk about the show for like 15 minutes, and then it goes into Ocean and
comments about what the hell happened.
What's that, Ocean?
Thank you guys. I'm going to run too.
See, I'll be watching you. What's that, Ocean?
There's several points in that conversation where I was just mad at Hugh Ross. There was one point in particular where he said that the Christian idea of the infinite universe implied the multiverse, and I didn't know how he got there.
Honestly,
that was just it's like the infinite universe that the Christians came up with in the Middle Ages does not equate to the multiverse. I have no idea how he's equating those two, and I wish you had been pressed on it.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna email him on that, I think, as well. I'm not quite sure how that came. I don't know about that. I may have missed it in his book, but I don't remember him mentioning that. Like I said, I may have just missed it. I remember in the discussion, but I thought it was kind of strange too, because I don't know how the Christian worldview kind of plays into
the Christian infinite universe is a gigantic single universe.
Yeah, it's a single universe, and you either have like God is the demerge of it. He's the theistic personalism approach. God had created the universe separately from him, but it's a self-contained system. Or in the classical theism approach, God is the everything of the universe, and then inside, like God, I guess you can say, the universe exists in space-time. Neither one model, those models kind of appeal to me, though. But
that's the classical theist model is that God, the universe is inside of God.
God is the non-creator. God is the non-creator being, and then inside all that exists, which would be God, is the created universe.
Oh, God, that's panentheism, though. That's a heresy.
Yeah, that's not classical.
That's how I've looked at it.
Yeah,
I think Kenny and I might argue with you on that, because I don't think that's the classical Christian position, nor would it be classical
Two
theism.
theists argue with me. Never had that happen before.
Right.
Have you been to my channel?
If I can maybe clarify a little bit what Hugh was saying is, in the Middle Ages, Thomas Aquinas, being an Aristotelian scholar, although he believed that the universe had a beginning, scientific consensus was that the universe was infinite. Now, of course, they didn't have the models of, level 1, level 2, level 3, or level 4 multiverse. But the idea was that an infinite creation was only worthy of an infinite God. And so it's the idea that God is the ontological ground and creator of the universe, but there's no temporal idea that God created the universe at a particular point in time, but that God just created infinitely and holding the universe in existence ontologically. So, and that's actually Aquinas's the context of his 5 ways, which a lot of people get wrong.
How is that being equated to a multiverse, though?
Well, just the sense of an infinite reality that exists, whether or not, whatever that looks like. Level
I
1.
would figure that their understanding of it as it would be presented would be an infinite single reality rather than
it would be a level 1 multiverse.
Well, the multiverses are still part of reality, though. I mean, it's just to me, there's 2 ways to look at reality. There's the philosophical way. Reality would be anything that exists, can exist, or will ever exist. That would be all of reality. Science, however, reality can be either just our universe that we're in, or it can apply to the multiverse as a whole.
Yeah. Being that a level 1 multiverse is identical to the medieval understanding of an infinite creation, I think that's why Hugh said what he said.
What do you mean by level 1 multiverse?
A level 1 multiverse is the idea that our universe goes on infinitely. Outside our light cone, there's, an infinite amount of...
Wouldn't that be a single universe, though?
Yeah,
I just don't understand how that's a multiverse.
I know, I've heard that term, but I don't want to call it the multiverse either.
No, it is called in the technical language a level 1 multiverse.
Yeah, but yeah. I still think it's part of our actual universe, even though it's outside of our observable event horizon, outside that light cone. But there is something, if I remember correctly, and maybe Felipe might be able to expound upon this, called dark flow. And dark flow could be the encroachment of some kind of I hate to say parallel, multiple dimensional or multi-universal universe that's somehow affecting our own. And I think that is outside of even our observable universe. That is somewhere that's even outside of our universe. Or is that somewhere that's just beyond our event horizon? I don't know. But I just remember dark flow is some way that they could actually try to develop a working theory to test if the multiverse is something that's legit.
I think I see what's being why a level 1 would be considered a multiverse. It's saying that given infinite space, there would in fact be an infinite number of Hubble volumes identical to ours in the universe. So
yeah, that's like multiple. I get what he's saying now.
Multiple of our own, like
copies, and then every possible thing. Yeah, I've heard somewhere if you go far enough, you actually run into yourself only in a different.
Yeah, you could have multiple doppelgangers of.
Right. Okay, so I know what you're talking about.
Which would be considered a multiverse then.
Right.
But that seems.
Boy, that's some heavy stuff.
That hurts my head.
Our PhD in PhD in astrophysics is actually going. Yeah, that's some.
Yeah, that's some deep.
What do you think about
deep stuff?
Like it's as far as like an infinite universe in that sense, where you would eventually run into yourself again, like infinite number of Hubble volumes that are exactly the same, as well as an infinite number of that are subtly different.
Have you been exposed to that before? It's more of a mathematical construct than I think.
Yeah.
Right. It seems like it's more about probability. But what do you think about the idea of that being a possibility?
Yeah, it sounds very interesting. Yeah, I think actually we work under the assumption that the universe is infinite.
Yeah,
it's different Hubble bubbles repeated infinitely.
Oh wow!
Hubble bubbles.
Yeah, it's not. It's just from a mathematical point of view. It's not like necessarily that's the reality.
Do you actually find that a lot of mathematical models don't actually translate to reality? I mean, when we talk about the singularity for most of us realize that singularity is a mathematical construct, and there is no reconciliation right now between quantum loop gravity and general relativity. But do you think that people take that term singularity and kind of reify it a little bit, where they make it into an actual legitimate thing that exists in some physical ontological way? Because I don't know what that even would entail. What would be a singularity if it did exist? And I'm not talking about black hole singularity, not like an infinite point where everything's dense inside a black hole. But the singularity of black hole, was that an actual ontological point that existed, or is that something you just find in mathematical constructs?
Yeah, it's basically something that you find in the general relativity equations. If you take your coordinate and you decrease towards the center, you find eventually singularity. But that only means that basically the general relativity cannot account for all the let's say all
it doesn't
the,
work back. It doesn't work that far back, right?
Exactly. So it's probably an incomplete theory, even though it's amazing and it continues to prove that it's a very powerful theory. It's probably incomplete.
01321326666 donation. He says the universe is flat. Finite me pince, whatever that means. I don't know. But I'm a universal flattist. I'm a flat universalist. So I think the universe is flat. So flat earthers do what you want with that. But
I think that's my favorite super chat you've ever received, Steve.
Dude, what does it mean? I don't know what it means. So
I have a quick question.
I think it says "Fight me, Sensei."
Dr. Felipe.
Oh, fight me, Sensei. Okay.
Hey, Dr. Felipe. With the center of a black hole, when it comes to that, quote unquote singularity, is it possible that there could be parallel universes on the other side? I mean, is that a possibility?
Yeah, it's a possibility, but I don't know how likely it can be.
Well, when they say parallel dimensions or something, is that really not the same thing? We're talking about like 10 dimensions of like string theory. Those are compact type of dimensions inside, like for quarks, right? So when they talk about parallel dimensions, is that something like you find from maybe a holdover from the 60s and 70s when there's like the outer limits, and you'd find, oh, this fifth dimensional being from another dimension? Is that how people still think of it nowadays, about multiple dimensions, when it's really something not even like that? It's actually more of a compact type system?
Within science, I don't think nobody thinks in those terms.
Okay, but the Joe Schmuckatelli who doesn't care for shit about science.
But my favorite science fiction writer says it's true.
Never must be true.
Has anybody read Mikio Kaku's Parallel Universe? His book? He's got some fascinating conjectures in there.
I have not. I would love to get him on one day. I really would.
Yeah.
Just for the fact that if he can correct Mr. Intelligent Design's misunderstanding that gravity is not a pushing force, that would be worth it.
Because Mr. Intelligent Design is the most incoherent person I have ever heard.
By far.
We need to have a debate between Mr. Intelligent Design and Felipe.
Oh, that'd be awesome. That would be like Division by Zero. You have somebody brilliant against, well, Mr. Intelligent Design. You would lose your mind.
The best part is that I think Felipe would have a hard time.
He's so incoherent. It's just staggering. You're just like, he thinks he's debunked all of science. Yeah,
90% of the effort is trying to figure out what he's saying.
And he thinks he's brilliant. That's what's the crazy thing about it.
Yeah, he thinks he's smarter than Einstein. His way. Okay, first of all, he thinks the probabilities can go outside of the range of 0 and 1. So you can have like 1.6 for a probability, right?
He says probability of 3.
3 because of supernatural. You can add, supernatural adds to a probability. Therefore, you can extend beyond 1, and you can have a probability of 3. He's so incoherent, it's ridiculous.
Okay,
300% likelihood of happening.
Yeah. Dr. Felipe, in Mikio Kaku's book on multiple worlds, multiple universes, he talks about the fact that maybe dark matter could be high energy photons that have slipped away into another dimension, but still have their, have the gravitational effects on matter in this dimension. What do you think about that? And what would be the, what would be the science behind that? How could photons slip into the next dimension?
I don't know. It doesn't sound plausible because photons don't have mass and massless particles, so they wouldn't produce any gravitational effect. But maybe it's something more complex than that, because it's in a outside dimension, maybe. But that's very speculative things. So
Sure.
I don't
All right,
think
guys,
that,
we got to wrap this
It's
up. The
fascinating,
Geek Room
though.
just went live, but they've got
That's
about 4 minutes before they actually start. So I will put the link in the live chat for the Geek Room and also for the video description. Please go subscribe to the Geek Room. Felipe, do you mind if we bring you back in some, whenever you find time?
Yeah.
I love this kind of discussion. I want to have much more time to talk about it.
Yeah.
My background is not astrophysics. My background is just basic science. I was a nuclear propulsion. I hate to use the word engineer. I wasn't a true engineer, but I trained people who operate nuclear power plants. So I had to learn a little bit of physics. So I love the topics, and I find brilliant people like you just fascinating. So please come back. I know we're short on time. I think you did a wonderful job with Dr. Ross. I mean, I know there's probably a lot of stuff you probably could have got into, but I like the fact it was kept kind of superficial. You guys got the points out, and let people kind of decide which way they want to go.
Okay.
You didn't need to do a gotcha moment and anything like that. And I think you did it exceptionally well. And I know you want to be a science communicator, and I think you're well on the way. So,
thank you.
Yeah, we need more science communicators out there for sure.
Absolutely. And by the way, Kyle, I respect you as a communicator as well. You are a theist, but you understand that science, is something that needs to be taught. So we have to learn critical thinking skills. We have to have mathematics and logic and reason. Whether you believe in God or not makes no difference to me. I'm an agnostic, so it's nothing that I really have a dog in that fight. As long as people are learning the correct science in school and it's using it to promote technology and learn and we can grow as a society out of it, I'm fine with that, right? So
absolutely.
Real quick, I do want to announce that Jade West is her birthday today. So we all want to wish her a birthday. She is having a fundraiser for Doctors Without Borders. I gave what I could. I'm very supportive of Doctors Without Borders. So if you happen to be friends with her on Facebook, she's raised money for Doctors Without Borders, or I'm going to try to butcher this. Medicines Sans Fronteras. Maybe how do you say Doctors Without Borders in Spanish there, Felipe?
What? Sorry?
How do you say Doctors Without Borders in Spanish? Medicinas Sans
Médicos Sin Fronteras.
There you go. He says it way better than I do. So
I thought it would be like El Doctorels with El
Doctorels. No Borteruses. We could butcher any language. I'm bad enough in English. People make fun of me because I butcher words and I mispronounce and I use the wrong words all the time. And I admit that. I suck at it. This is not something that comes natural to me. I had years of speech therapy, so I've gotten a lot better over the years, but it's still a difficult thing for me. I'm not an effective communicator in that regard, but I have done training and I had to learn to get in front of people and not be embarrassed, because I tell you what, all of humans have one thing in common. They all have a fear of speaking, I think, initially, and also without noises and a few other things. But most people do not have this instilled thing. They like to be in the forefront, in the center of attention. I know I wasn't. So, but anyways, like I said, Jade West is asking for her birthday, instead of giving her presents, to have a fundraiser for Doctors Without Borders, and I think that's great. And she only needs to raise $200. She's $80 into it, so if you can chip in at $5, great. With that, I'm going to close this to a close, and let's go check out the Geek Room and Kyle and SJ and give them some support. And if you got it, light it up, because it's going to be on weed.
So what's our buddy Kyle doing? Oh, the weed. Okay.
The weed. So if you got it, light it. Good night.